I'm a doctor, and I've kept one truth from my husband my whole life: that he's infertile. I lied and said it was me who couldn't have kids, just to protect his pride. But on our wedding anniversary, I heard him scream with my own ears, "Please save my wife and my baby!" If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Leave me a comment. I want to hear your answer below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Sarah. In a few days, it'll be my anniversary with Michael Reed. I had planned out a surprise gift for him, down to the smallest detail. I had just quit my job at the public hospital. Those endless night shifts and a tiny paycheck drained every bit of energy I had. Now, I work at a prestigious private hospital in New York. The pay is better, the hours are more flexible, and my coworkers don't look at me like I'm some kind of machine anymore. On my first day, I walked into the clinic with a light heart, wearing a fresh white coat that still smelled like clean fabric. I thought, this is a new beginning, for both me and Michael. But then, the OB/GYN door burst open. Fast footsteps, heavy breathing. Michael rushed in, not alone, but holding a woman tightly. Her belly was round and full, her face twisted in pain. He didn't see me. No, he didn't even look. His eyes were panicked, his lips trembling as he yelled, "Please, save my wife and my baby!" That word, wife, stabbed me like an icy knife. And baby. It tore through every picture I'd ever had of our marriage. I stood frozen by the instrument table. The blood in my body stopped flowing, but the clinic didn't. Machines kept beeping. Nurses called out. She moaned on the bed. Me? The one standing in the corner? Michael Reed's actual wife? My tears spilled out, hot, running down my cheeks before I could stop them. But I blinked and wiped them away with the back of my hand. Not now. Not here. I'm a doctor. I have a job to do. Even if my heart is shattering, her life, and the baby's, have to come first. A nurse pushed Michael out. He didn't even recognize me. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone with her. The woman on the bed was panting, hair soaked in sweat, clutching the edge of the white sheet. She didn't look at me. She just whispered, "Please! The baby!" I stepped forward, my hands trembling as I reached for the medical chart. Every step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, but I forced myself to move. I checked her vitals, my voice steady and cold. "Lie still. I'll examine you." But inside my head, a storm was howling. "This is his girlfriend. This is his baby." Those words echoed again and again, like a hammer slamming into my chest. I placed my hand on her belly, feeling the small movements underneath. Her water had broken. It wasn't a complicated case. The ones who betrayed me are now begging me to save a life, but I don't use my medical skills for revenge, even though my heart feels like it's being stabbed. I wrote the medical orders precisely, my hand trembling slightly as I held the pen, but the handwriting stayed neat. 8-month pregnancy with amniotic fluid leakage, admit for monitoring. I handed it to the nurse, my voice calm. "Get her tested immediately." The nurse nodded, pushed the wheelchair for Jessica, and they left. My husband brought his pregnant mistress right in front of me. Can you believe that? I leaned against the wall, chest rising and falling, Michael's voice echoing in my head. Urgent. Worried for her. Had they been together for at least 8 months already? I closed my eyes, trying to erase the recent images of our intimacy. Those warm hugs, those gentle kisses under the bedside lamp. Now they just made me feel filthy, like something dirty clinging to my skin. I clenched my teeth, my body shaking with anger, tears threatening to fall, but I swallowed them back. My genuine love turned out to be a joke. I opened my eyes, standing frozen in the hospital hallway. The beeping of machines echoed from afar, blending with the quick footsteps of the nurses. I told myself in a whisper, as if trying to calm my own heart, "Michael Reed, you don't deserve my love. But my heart, even in pieces, was still torn. 8 years of marriage, full of memories, isn't something you just throw away like an old coat. I closed my eyes, and the beautiful moments of our past flooded back, like sunlight piercing through the fog, warm and painful. I remembered those first nights after our wedding, when Michael held me on that old sofa in our tiny apartment, the smell of coffee he brewed rising from the porcelain cup. He'd hum softly, that warm, low voice, singing the old song I loved, and I'd rest my head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, thinking this would last forever. I remembered those weekend mornings when he'd sneak out of bed early, make breakfast, then bring it to me with a kiss to wake me up. Honey, today I'm your servant. Even if the toast was burnt on one side, I'd still eat it and laugh till I cried. I remembered our beach trip in year 3, when he held my hand, waves lapping at our feet, and whispered, Sarah, with you, I need nothing else. Those moments, once the light in my life, now felt like blades slicing through my heart. 1830. For 8 years, I loved Michael blindly, loved him enough to hide the truth that he couldn't have children, and took the blame from his mother just to protect him. I used to think that if he was sorry, if he admitted it was just a mistake, maybe I'd forgive him. I'd hold him like those old nights and forget everything. Jessica, the baby, the betrayal. I pictured myself saying, All right, Michael, let's start over. But during lunch break, I walked to her hospital room, Jessica Morales, intending to speak with Michael directly. I stopped at the door, my hand gently touching the doorknob. Then her voice came from inside, full of worry. Michael, when will you divorce her? The doctor said the baby could come any time. I don't matter, but our child cannot be illegitimate, Michael replied, his voice urgent, like he was trying to stay calm. Quiet, this is a hospital. Don't make a scene. Then he softened, sweet as syrup, coaxing her. I know Sarah. She can't handle it when someone's too kind to her. The nicer I am, the guiltier she feels. Then my mom will say a few things about how she doesn't want kids. Because of her insecurity, she'll ask for a divorce herself and won't ask for anything. I stood frozen outside the door, hand dropping limp. I couldn't believe it. The man who'd slept beside me for 8 years, he knew my every reaction. How I'd feel guilty receiving kindness. How I was insecure about not having kids. Turns out this was his plan. Intricate and cruel. I fought the urge to storm in, turned away, and walked off. This reality snuffed out the last bit of hope in me, like someone blowing out a fragile candle in the dark. I made a silent vow, the words hissing through clenched teeth. I will make both of them pay. Luckily, today I only worked at the outpatient clinic, no surgeries. As a doctor, I'm tough enough to stay composed, even when my heart feels torn apart. I walked out of the hospital, streetlights casting shadows on the rain-soaked sidewalk, my high heels clicking in a small puddle. I checked my phone and saw a message from Michael. Urgent matter at the law office. Won't be home tonight. I pressed my lips together, clutching the phone tightly, feeling slightly lighter. Good. I didn't want to face that cheating bastard, while rage was still boiling in me. I got into the car, the scent of leather blending with the faint smell of old perfume, and drove home in silence, just the soft patter of rain tapping the windshield. The door closed behind me, with a dry click of the lock. I dropped my bag on the floor, the rain-soaked shoes leaving smudges on the wooden floor. The house was quiet. Only the ticking of the wall clock could be heard. The pain I'd been holding in all day crashed over me like a wave. I collapsed onto the sofa, buried my face in my hands, and cried. Loud, guttural sobs that scraped my throat like they were tearing my chest apart. My tears soaked into my sleeves, hot and relentless. I thought about Michael, about Jessica, about the baby in her belly, and shame surged inside me like a slap to the face. This is the tragedy of being an adult. The older you get, the lonelier it is, and the more you have to chew on your wounds alone. I didn't call my parents. I knew they'd be heartbroken, would hold me and cry with me, but I didn't want them to see me like this. Nearly 30, I had to make this divorce decision on my own. I sat upright, wiped my tears, my nails lightly scratching my skin. My parents never approved of Michael. You deserve someone better, my mom once said, eyes red, when I insisted on marrying him. They gave in reluctantly, watching me lose myself over a man. During the 3 years we were married, Michael's mother kept hinting about having kids. A family needs to grow, needs a new member, she'd say every time we had dinner together. I lied and said I couldn't have children, using fake medical test results to hide the truth. Michael was born infertile, unable to produce sperm. Not even IVF could help. I loved him blindly, loved him so much, I was willing to carry the blame to protect him. If the truth came out, our marriage would have ended instantly, especially since my parents had already disapproved from the beginning. I remembered the time his mother looked at me, coldly, and said, "Sarah, you're not fulfilling your role as a wife." I just forced a smile, squeezing the napkin under the table, my heart aching. But I still chose to protect Michael. My parents, not wanting me to be mistreated, gave Michael $500,000 to start his law office, hoping his mother would criticize me less. I remembered that day, her lips pressed tight, but her eyes lit up with greed. That night, Michael held me and whispered, "Thank you, Sarah. I won't let you down." I rested my head on his chest, believing my love was strong enough to overcome everything. Now, sitting in the dark kitchen, I let out a bitter laugh. The man I tried so hard to protect had betrayed me. Cruelly, coldly, 8 years of holding it all in to love him. I'm not saintly enough to just sit back and endure it, to let Michael and Jessica's betrayal trample over my dignity. I wiped my tears, my fingernails lightly scratched my cheek, and I stood up, looking at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, but my gaze had hardened. Michael's secret. I would reveal it at the right moment, like an arrow hitting its mark. I pulled myself together, took care of myself like usual. I washed my face, the cold water numbing my skin, then gently applied lotion, my movements slow and deliberate. I didn't want to show up at the hospital with puffy eyes, didn't want my coworkers to look at me with pity. I got into bed, expecting to toss and turn, but strangely, I drifted off into a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, I sat at the dining table, steam rising from the coffee cup in my hand. I opened my phone and created a secondary Instagram account, set to only show stories for 24 hours. I posted a few things from the hospital page, ultrasound images, sterile white hallways, and set the profile picture to a nameless flower for disguise. I didn't want Michael or Jessica to get suspicious. While Michael was away, I went to Jessica's room, crisp white coat on, a professional smile on my lips. "I'm here to check on the patient," I said, voice calm, hand scribbling notes on the chart. I had no intention of harming her. In fact, I would protect her and the baby. They were crucial cards in my divorce plan. As a doctor, I couldn't hurt a pregnant woman, but Michael, he'd do it to himself. I secretly checked Jessica's Instagram, but her page was blank. Just a few photos with friends, not a single trace of Michael. I added her, then gently suggested, "You should post something with your partner, show off a little happiness." Jessica gave an awkward smile, eyes darting away. "He doesn't like taking pictures." I smiled too, but inside, I was suspicious. Was she too private or too cautious? The plan to get a photo failed, so I decided to switch strategies. I hired a private investigator, a middle-aged man with eyes sharp like a hunting hawk, and handed it all over. "Find everything on Jessica Morales and Michael Reed," I said. I kept watching Jessica whenever Michael wasn't around, paying attention to every little detail. One day, walking past her room, I heard arguing behind the half-closed door. "What are you doing here?" "It's too risky." I stopped, heart racing, ear against the door. "If I don't come, my girlfriend will be stolen." "Jessica, don't tell me you're really gonna marry that guy." A strange man's angry voice burst out. "What are you saying? Do you still want the money or not?" Jessica snapped back, trying to keep her voice low. I stood frozen, hand gripping the edge of my coat. So Jessica wasn't simple. She wasn't just fooling Michael. She had her own agenda, another man behind her. I knew the baby wasn't Michael's, and that was the key to my plan. I turned away, a sly smile curling on my lips. The cheater finally got cheated on. I walked down the hallway, the sterile white light shining on my face, cold but calm. I didn't need to strike. Michael would destroy himself. All I had to do was cut clean from him, from those years I once thought were forever. I picked up my phone and messaged the lawyer. Prepare the divorce papers. I want it done soon. I took a deep breath, a sense of relief creeping in, like a weight had been lifted. Michael and Jessica could go ahead and weave their own tragedy. As for me, I would walk away, on my own path, with no shadow of betrayal behind me. Jessica chose to have a C-section. No one knew whether she was just eager to meet the baby or had other reasons, but it definitely wasn't because her body couldn't handle a natural birth. I'd checked. Everything was fine. The next morning, just as I opened my front door, Michael and his mother, Margaret Reed, showed up at my doorstep. They came to force me into a divorce. I dropped onto the sofa, hair messy, glanced at them, then closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. Michael wore a suit, but his eyes were sunken, hands shoved in his pockets, clearly tense. Margaret, her silver hair in a tight bun, stared coldly and pointed straight at me. "Sarah, what kind of attitude is this?" "Not even a greeting?" Michael cut in, voice gentle but calculated. "Mom, calm down." "Sarah, can we talk?" I didn't answer. Margaret started talking like she was delivering a verdict in court. "You're disrespectful, you don't want kids, you haven't fulfilled your role as a wife." She spoke for over an hour without repeating herself once, listing every fault of mine, from not having children to the tone I used when speaking to her. Michael tried to squeeze in a few sentences, voice strained. "Mom, that's enough." "Sarah, I just want to—" But she cut him off, declaring like a final judgment, "You two have different values. This marriage must end." Michael bowed his head, voice hoarse. "Sarah, I'm sorry." I opened my eyes, looked him straight in the face, and tears fell down without me meaning to. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of taking her insults to protect him, all gone with one weightless apology. I asked myself, what had I, Sarah Carter, done to deserve being part of a staged drama by a so-called top-tier lawyer like Michael? Maybe because I had endured too much, he thought I'd bow my head again, stay silent like before. But I wasn't that naive girl anymore. I stood up, my voice cold. "Your law firm was built with $500,000 from my father. After 7 years, paying back $1.5 million to my parents isn't unreasonable, is it? This house and our income are marital assets. You know how division of assets works, right?" Michael froze, eyes wide, his face shifting from fake sorrow to panic. Margaret slammed her hand on the chair, yelling so loud it felt like it tore into my ears. "You dare ask for money? That was a gift from your parents. Don't you dare!" I cut her off, voice sharp as a blade. "Then take it to court." Michael looked at me, realizing the deadly calm in my eyes. "Sarah, 8 years of marriage, and you have no feelings left for me?" he asked, voice trembling, still trying to play the repentant husband. I gave a mocking laugh, then tossed a stack of photos onto the table. Pictures from the private investigator, showing him hugging Jessica at a cafe, rubbing her belly. Michael's face went pale. The fake sorrow disappeared, replaced with cold calculation. "It's useless, Sarah. That money from your dad was a gift, not a loan. If you sue, you'll just waste money on lawyers." I tilted my head and smiled coolly. "You think I want the money? Your child doesn't have time to wait. Drag this out and the baby will be born illegitimate. And if I release these photos, your reputation—" Margaret screamed. "You're evil!" I replied, voice calm. "Save your energy for the courtroom." In the end, Michael gave in and agreed to pay $1.5 million. He signed the agreement quickly, like he just wanted it all over with. But that ease only made me hate him more. 8 years? Who was I blind for? I took the money, knowing full well that if it weren't for Jessica's baby, I wouldn't have been able to get back such a large sum to return to my parents. But what he would never see coming was that the divorce wasn't my final revenge. It was just the beginning. Michael urged me to sign quickly. His voice rushed, like he wanted to end everything before I could change my mind. "Sarah, hurry up!" I looked him straight in the eye, voice ice cold. "Transfer the money first. Once it's in my account, I'll sign. That way, we won't have to see each other again. And make sure you write clearly. Debt repayment." Michael's face darkened, his cheekbones hollowed, lips pressed tight like he was swallowing his anger. Margaret, standing behind him, pointed at me. "You really are greedy." I didn't flinch, just stood there with my arms crossed, staring at them. Michael finally transferred the money. I called the bank and saw the notification. $1.5 million received. I picked up the pen and signed the divorce papers, my handwriting sharp and decisive, without a moment's hesitation. Holding the paper in my hand, I didn't feel the heartbreak I thought I would. Instead, a wave of relief rushed in, like I'd just removed a heavy shackle. I almost laughed. Seeing how calm I was, while he'd just lost a huge sum of money, Michael turned pale with rage. "Sarah, you're really this happy to divorce me?" "Were these 8 years fake to you?" he asked, voice trembling, trying to act heartbroken. I gave a cold laugh, tilted my head. "If you hadn't cheated, maybe I'd still be stupidly in love with you." This was a no-contest divorce, the official reason being irreconcilable differences. The lawyer, face blank, flipped through the papers. But Michael still tried to smear me, speaking low but loud enough for the people nearby to hear. She never wanted kids, never wanted to build a family. I decided I wasn't going to protect his reputation anymore. I said it loud and clear, voice echoing in the small room. He cheated and got someone else pregnant. Judging looks from the staff and a few bystanders immediately turned toward Michael. His face darkened like nightfall, fists clenched, but he didn't dare deny it. Margaret then softened her tone, like she was gently advising me. She repeated the narrative that I didn't want kids, making the people nearby glance between me and her in confusion. I didn't argue. I just turned around and walked out. Arguing with her would be a waste of time. I wanted to strike at Michael's pride and psyche, and I would. Margaret blocked my path. Maybe since the divorce was settled, she didn't feel the need to put on a mask anymore. She leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Now that you're divorced, my son will have a child right away." "And you? Just stay alone forever." I stopped and gave her the brightest smile. "Thank you, Margaret. Send my regards to your grandson." I emphasized "your grandson" and saw a flicker in her eyes. But they didn't catch the meaning. They thought I was bitter, jealous about losing Michael. They didn't know Jessica's baby wasn't even his. And I wasn't foolish enough to reveal that just yet. Thanks to Michael's connections in the legal world, our divorce went through quickly. Assets were split evenly, no children, no disputes. I stepped out of the courthouse, pulled out my phone, and called my parents. The phone rang twice. Then my mother's voice came through, warm but filled with worry. "Sarah, are you okay?" I sat down on a wooden bench nearby, took a deep breath, and told them everything. The divorce, Michael's betrayal, the secret of his infertility that I had hidden, and Jessica's pregnancy. My father, voice low and seething with anger, cut in. "That bastard! You're better off without him." My mother was softer. "Sweetheart, I'm just glad you're free now." I smiled, eyes stinging, feeling their love through every word. Dad hired a moving company the very next day to clear out everything from the old apartment, what used to be my home with Michael. I stood there, watching the movers haul things out. Dad stood beside me, arms crossed, his voice firm. "Everything in that place I bought for you. Now that you're divorced, Why leave him with anything? I laughed and nodded at his childlike idea. Mom held my hand, her gaze gentle but unwavering. Evil people will bring ruin upon themselves, Sarah. Don't dirty your hands. This time, I listened. To sever all ties with Michael, I requested a transfer to a hospital near my parents' house, where every morning I could hear birds singing in the yard, see my mom making tea in the kitchen, and feel a new life beginning. 3 months later, Michael came to my parents' house but was chased away by my dad. Still, he didn't give up. He cornered me in the parking lot. Sarah, I'm infertile, right? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did you hide it from me? He asked, his voice trembling, like he was trying to play the remorseful husband again. But I had already seen his performance, his sweet lies. So now I didn't believe a single word. And honestly, whether I believed him or not didn't even matter anymore. I had already let go. Get out of my way! I shouted, my voice cold, my hand gripping the strap of my bag. But Michael, like a drowning man clinging to a lifeline, stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. I was wrong. Let's just talk calmly, he whispered, his breath hot against my shoulder. I struggled, but his grip tightened, like a pair of shackles. The parking lot was dark and suffocating. The smell of motor oil and concrete made it hard to breathe. My whole body went cold, my heart pounding. In that moment, horror movie scenes flashed through my mind. Men who'd lost control, the crazed look in their eyes, and blood pooling on the floor. I was shaking, not because I was afraid of dying, but because I truly wondered if Michael had completely lost it. He, a once sharp lawyer, was now just a broken man, hollow-eyed and unhinged. I thought of all those stories about lawyers turned murderers, men who once stood tall but crumbled under despair. Who's to say Michael, with that pale face and trembling hands, wasn't capable of the same? But I prayed, if anything like that ever happened, the victim would absolutely never be me. It wasn't my fault. I was the victim of Michael and Jessica, of layered lies and betrayal. I wasn't about to bear the consequences of someone else's mistakes. Only a fool argues with a madman. I took a deep breath, pretending to sigh to steady myself, my voice soft but firm. Michael, we should talk seriously. This isn't the right place, he let go of me, eyes flickering with hope. I looked at him, messy hair, wrinkled suit, and thought, I had let go of revenge, so why was he like this? Even if Jessica had swindled all his money, with his past skills and connections, why stoop this low, putting on an act in front of me? For what? That thought flashed in my mind, and I instantly grew cautious. Michael stuck close to me, like he was afraid I'd jump in the car and drive away. With no other option, I led him to a mid-range restaurant nearby. Not too upscale for him to be denied entry in his state, but not too cheap that I wouldn't be able to escape if needed. I sat across from him, arms crossed, and asked bluntly, Michael, you married Jessica already, didn't you? He jerked his head up, eyes bloodshot like a cornered wolf, his gaze feral. Don't mention her! But then, realizing we were in public, he lowered his voice to a near whisper. She fooled me! Took my money, my love, and destroyed my name. I frowned, my voice calm. Ruined your name? What do you mean? Michael lowered his head, seemingly not even hearing my question, lost in his own emotions. His right hand slammed hard on the table with a thud that made the water glass shake, veins bulging across the back of his hand. The baby's not mine. I can't have children, he said, voice twisted like he was being tortured. I brought her and the baby home. And the next day, she vanished, took all my valuable assets with her. He paused, his eyes empty. Turns out, while looking for her, he accidentally ran into the doctor who had treated us, my friend. That doctor, without realizing, revealed that we were already divorced, and then let slip the secret I had kept hidden. He repeated, his voice breaking, She destroyed my entire career. I sat there, fingers gripping the edge of the table, my heart frozen. I could guess. The part he wasn't saying was the real bomb that shattered him. something Jessica had done that wrecked his professional life. Suddenly, Michael looked up at me, begging to start over, his voice lost, like a man adrift in a storm. "Sarah, give me a chance, let's start again." I didn't respond. Just looked at him. A deranged Michael. Nothing like the sharp lawyer I once blindly loved. I had never seen him like this. Red eyes, trembling hands, as if all logic had left him. I didn't dare walk away, afraid he'd do something reckless. I took a deep breath, knowing that even though the restaurant was near my home, I couldn't let this unstable man get anywhere near my family. I was scared, but kept my face composed, eyes scanning the restaurant for an exit. While he had his head down, mumbling something, I discreetly gestured with my hand to a nearby waiter. A young waiter didn't understand my hand signal, maybe because Michael, though mad in my eyes, still looked like a normal man, just with a few overly intense gestures. I pretended to stay calm and ordered another glass of orange juice, but in my head, I was frantically running through every possible escape plan. I glanced at the door, gauging the distance, but the exit still felt impossibly far. Michael sat there, eyes red and watery, mumbling nonstop. "Sarah, give me a chance!" I clenched my glass, sinking into hopelessness, not knowing how to get out without triggering him. Just then, a voice came from behind, gentle but firm. "Sarah, who's this?" "Aren't you going to introduce us?" I looked up and saw Ryan Patel, a young doctor from my department, who often teased me by calling me Professor. He stood there in a light blue coat, smirking, his sharp eyes locked on Michael. I jumped up and hugged Ryan, pinching his arm hard as a signal. "Ryan, this is, my ex-husband," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Ryan raised an eyebrow, scoffing. "Oh, the cheating lawyer? Still clinging to your ex-wife after a divorce. Don't you feel pathetic?" My heart skipped a beat, thudding hard in my chest. He must have lost his mind too, saying the word lawyer so loud in front of a Michael who was teetering on the edge. I pulled Ryan aside, about to whisper a warning about Michael's unstable state, but before I could speak, Michael roared, voice hoarse, "Sarah! You betrayed me! For him!" I was so stunned I laughed, but I wasn't about to argue with someone who'd clearly lost it. I grabbed Ryan and started toward the door, praying silently we'd get out in time. But before we could reach it, Michael suddenly pulled out a knife from somewhere, the blade gleaming. He lunged, movements fast like a predator. God, I thought, heart stopping. He had planned to kill me all along. Thank God I'd lured him out of the parking lot. Otherwise, I might have died alone in that cold, dark place. But things weren't any better now. In front of dozens of witnesses in the restaurant, Michael waved the knife, his face twisted with rage. I shook violently, my legs frozen in place, but still shoved Ryan aside and screamed, "Get out of the way! Don't get dragged into this!" But Ryan stood his ground like a mountain, eerily calm. In the chaos, I kept pushing him while yelling at Michael, "Jessica's the one who ruined you. She wrecked your career, tricked you. What's the point of killing me?" But Michael was gone, screaming a line I'll never forget. "You knew I was infertile. Why didn't you tell me?" What kind of logic is that? What was he even thinking? I stood there, frozen, as he lunged again, knife flashing. Ryan suddenly stepped forward, lightning fast. A clean, sharp kick knocked the knife to the ground. Michael's arm flung back, slamming his head in the process. Before I could even catch my breath, Ryan twisted Michael's arms behind his back, shouting, "Call 911 now!" He wiped his forehead, like brushing away invisible sweat, and grinned at me. "Good thing I do martial arts." I stood there, legs trembling, breath shallow, staring at Michael collapsing, eyes blank. Police arrived, handcuffed him, the clicking of the cuffs mixing with the whispers from stunned diners. Ryan and I were taken in for statements, the flashing lights of the patrol car blinking through the window. Watching Michael being taken away made me shiver. He clearly had nothing left to lose. That's why he was so reckless. Sitting in the interview room, I held the warm cup the officer gave me, but my hands still trembled. Just the thought that someone wanted to kill me made my entire body feel like it had been dropped into a freezer. I didn't want to analyze Michael's motives anymore, whether it was because he couldn't find Jessica and blamed me, or because of his pride, or because he'd simply gone insane. None of it mattered now. Ryan patted my shoulder gently, smiling. "Sarah, you okay?" I nodded, giving a faint smile. Leaving the police station, I let out a breath of relief and turned to Ryan Patel, who was still standing beside me. "I was lucky to have you," I said. Ryan smirked, that mischievous smile on his face. "Sarah, I think you've misunderstood the word lucky. I drove 30 minutes just to get to that restaurant. Next time, pick somewhere closer, will you?" I froze, then laughed. The first real laugh I'd had all day. Turns out Ryan had been in the parking lot back then, saw Michael acting suspiciously, and decided to follow me. I'd been too panicked to notice, but he'd quietly protected me the entire time. "Why didn't you call 911?" I asked, my voice still shaking. Ryan tilted his head, his smile half joking, half serious. "Hero saves damsel moments like that. If I called 911 right away, I'd miss my big scene." I laughed again, for the first time all day. I figured he was just trying to make me feel less tense. But his eyes, steady and bright, told a different story. Ryan was serious. Because of the hospital's no dating rule, a few weeks later, he transferred to a different facility. Time passed, and Ryan slowly became part of my life. Morning coffees, quiet moments when he'd fix my leaky pipes without saying a word. Those silly jokes that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. I used to think love was a luxury buried beneath the ashes of Michael. But Ryan, with the way he patiently waited for me to open up, made me believe in it again. Michael was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to prison. I didn't follow the trial. I didn't want any more ties pulling me back into that past. But then I found out the secret he'd kept. Jessica wasn't her real name. She was a victim. Her mother had been in a car accident and paralyzed, and the driver responsible got away with it, thanks to Michael, who defended him in court. Jessica had gotten her hands on the evidence, exposed it online, and destroyed Michael's career. At first, I wanted revenge, wanted both Michael and Jessica to pay for the pain they caused. But my parents, with their calm and love, pulled me back. "Don't let hatred become your prison," my father said, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. I listened, and I realized letting go was the real freedom. Michael's career didn't fall apart just because of infertility, but because his greed and lies were finally dragged into the light, like sunshine burning away the fog. What surprised me more was that Jessica, later arrested for fraud, called me from prison to apologize. I felt for her. Had I been in her shoes, I'm not sure I wouldn't have done the same. But the law doesn't forgive, and she had to pay the price. I whispered, "I've already let it go." If it hadn't been for Jessica being Michael's mistress, I might have stayed trapped in that toxic marriage. She, unknowingly, helped me break free from Michael and find a new kind of happiness. Ryan and I stayed together, and a year later, we got married in a small ceremony under the trees in my parents' backyard. Now we have a baby girl, with big, round eyes just like Ryan's. I stand in the nursery beside her wooden crib, watching her sleep peacefully. What I once didn't dare to dream, a real family, a true home, has become my reality. I step outside, where my parents are sipping tea, their laughter mingling with the rustling of the leaves. I look up at the sky, clear blue, not a single cloud, and feel freedom flood my chest. Michael, Jessica, the painful years. They're just clouds that have passed. Justice sometimes comes in ways we never expect, like a rainbow after the storm. I, Sarah Carter, have found my own path, where every step feels light, and every breath is filled with light. When you let go of the past, the sky opens up and happiness finds you, like sunlight after the rain.